You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey folks, welcome to the Making Data Simple podcast. We're going to continue the excitement today. It's a full-time job here where we work to make data simple and we give it our best. This is also, I don't know when this is going to air, but this is also Customer Service Week. And the theme is Excellence Starts Here. So thank you to all those that provide the client experience and drive client success. It's close to my heart. It's one of my passions. So thank you for what you do. Today, we have the topic of exploring data science. Yes, I know we've hit this before, but we're going to hit it again today, I think a little bit uniquely. I am speaking with the infamous Steve Astorino. Steve is the VP of Development in Hybrid Cloud. He's responsible for things like data science, Z Analytics, and he also serves as the Canada Lab Director at IBM. Now, before I give it to you, Steve, I got to tell everybody I was in Toronto. You were kind enough to introduce Tanmay Bakshi when we did that podcast. And then Steve proceeded to give me a ton of grief because he has not been on the podcast yet. And so it was deservedly so. So sorry it took so long. Steve, welcome. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Al. Hey, appreciate it. So, yeah, Steve Astorino. I'm the Vice President of Development for India Analytics Group. I got one of the coolest jobs in the world. I manage all the data science, machine learning offerings, Watson Studio, data science experience, decision optimization, Watson Explorer, SPSS, and so forth. But also, I manage one of the most mature products in the world on mainframe for Db2, Db2Z, some of the tools, IDA. So it's very exciting. And as you mentioned, I'm also the lab director here in Canada, so that's just icing on the cake.
Do a little bit of everything. We'll hit every one of those, by the way. Again, we're talking ML and AI. We've done that in several previous podcasts, but I think you have a unique view and insight. So here's my first question. Is AI going to take over the world in the form of a zombie apocalypse?
Yes.
Perfect answer. That was not the answer I was expecting, but that's a good answer.
That's why I said it.
Very good. So let me ask you this. On the backs of that, what do you think of the myths are of AI? Because everybody's talking about AI. You know, based on your experience, you're working with clients, what are you seeing that is just not factual, or things you look out there and you say, look, this is just a myth. This isn't really happening, or vice versa. I mean, things that are fact and people that don't recognize it.
Yeah. So there is a lot of noise out there. Obviously, there's a lot of fear. So anytime these types of changes happen in the world, people get scared about what's coming, what's in the future. If you go back 50 years, people were terrified of computers going to take away all jobs. And, fast forwarding to where we are today, it's created jobs, right? It's made everything better. Life is much better, and everybody's kind of happy there, right? So I expect the same thing from AI. Of course, there's this fear it's going to get into the wrong hands, just like computers would have, right, or did. It creates fear in people. So my view is that there are way more positives than negatives. AI is going to help us in healthcare, in finance, in retail, in everything, you name it. It's already happening today, but it's just going to transform everything that we do and how we do it, but for the positive, right? And there'll be some negatives that come with it, but I don't expect the world to end because of AI. I think the world's going to get better.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. And look, I think the one thing it does change is everybody has got to be continuously learning. I mean, even more so, I think, than in history. Yuval Noah Harari has a new book out. It's Secret to Surviving the Coming, I don't remember, the 21st century or whatever. Pretty good. And he talks about the fact that to keep up to speed, everybody's going to have to continue to reinvent themselves. That's all. So I think that change scares people above all. But outside of that, I'm with you 100%. Let's start with the basics. Why is data science such a hot topic from your point of view? How do analytics and machine learning tie into data science?
Yeah, sure. So, data science, so let me start with machine learning maybe. Machine learning, it's nothing new, right? It's been around for actually since 1950s, late 1950s, and it has evolved over time. But most importantly, what's making it so hot today is the fact that computers have evolved, the resources, the speed, the systems, the memory, and so forth are making it more possible now to be able to run these algorithms that are going to provide this machine learning capability. In addition to that, the other thing that has really changed is the amount of data that's coming in, right? So now we have this new natural resource that's happening in this transformation with all this data that's coming in, and being able to drive insight and understand what's going on there and use machine learning for that and data science is a key contributor to why today it's so hot. In addition to that, the technology has evolved. Technology in general has evolved so much that we're really ready to take things to the next level. And we used to do data mining, we used to do predictive analytics, and now it's really AI about how do we teach systems to learn and use this, learn on their own and then drive the insight automatically, right? So, but if I talk a little bit about the differences, there's a lot of confusion out there what these things are. So data science is really, it's exactly what it says. It's really the art of understanding data, using algorithms to feed the data into these algorithms and drive insight out of that, right? And then machine learning is really operationalizing these models that get created from the data scientist and being able to productize those and embed them into our applications. All of this fits into an AI umbrella where systems now are smart enough to kind of leverage machine learning and data science to kind of teach themselves. So that's really, if I were to simplify it, what it's all about. And so all the technology and the data that's happening today, that's coming in today, it's really driving this transformation.
I was looking at, as I'm preparing a pitch, I've got to go do a big data summit pitch, and I'm creating a presentation. And one of the slides that I have on it is the fact that we make 35,000 decisions a day, except on the weekends because my wife takes most of those decisions away from me. But 35,000 decisions a day, I don't think people realize that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that AI can help us with. But I think, I'm a data guy, and it's really predicated on the cleanliness, I guess, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but just the data is in such a state that you're one source of the truth, et cetera. And I was reading a quote the other day that says data-related challenges are hindering like 96% of organizations from achieving AI. Let me start there and break down. When you're meeting with clients, and I know you're meeting with a lot of clients, talk about DSX, do you see, does that ring true? Do you see, hey, we got to start at the data because that's where the problem start? Or do you feel like, hey, I'm walking in and most of the clients that we're hitting, they're longer in the maturity curve and have already addressed their data challenges?
So I think what you say is accurate. So most of the clients I talk to, so 80% of a data scientist time is spent on making sure that the data, if you think about the overall task that a data scientist needs to do, that's in my view, it's wasted effort getting the data to a point where it's usable, consumable by our algorithms for machine learning so that you can drive that insight, right? So that's 100% true. In terms of where customers are at, there's different levels of maturity, as you say. But I would say that there's a lot that has happened over the last, let's say 5 years, right? A lot of customers have thought, okay, I have data coming from everywhere, and I need to build a data lake. I'll choose Hadoop or some other data warehouse and bring all the data together. In reality, a lot of that has created what's called a data swamp, and the data is not really clean. It's not, so everybody's challenged by the same situation right now. And but the idea behind all the tooling that we're building is to simplify the task to make sure that data is clean, right? There's a lot of tooling, automation, and so forth that happens so that the data scientist can actually concentrating on bringing the value out of that data as opposed to spending time cleaning that data.
To that end, what is you've walked into a lot of clients, and when I'm working with a lot of clients, we end up talking about the maturity curve, how they're going to go build what we call the ladder to AI, going from the left to the right, going from a good data foundation to unified governance, all on up the ladder. I tend to focus a lot on the data side because they got to get that straight. What is the best situation that you've walked into? The best. Think of the client that you walked into, the best situation by which they have got their data science organizationally, as well as they're already thinking around the right models set up, that you say, boy, this is a customer that has really got it. What's the perfect picture of that look like that you've seen?
Perfect picture to me are strong words, because I think one is a point in time, and two, it's different for everyone. But so I've met with customers where they've had no data science teams, just trying to embark into the data science or the AI ladder, and to customers or clients that have up to 1,000 data scientists, right? So if you want to talk about maturity, obviously the customer that has 1,000 data scientists has spent a lot of time getting this to work and has spent a good investment into making sure that they're environment is up and running, their data is clean, and their data scientists can do their job and execute. But to me, though, I find those are also the customers who've realized early data science, machine learning, and AI is going to bring value to their organization. It's going to leap them ahead of the competition. Those are the ones to me that are, I would call more mature, that have got it right and know where they're going and have already capitalized on using this technology. So
I guess one area I was trying to go with that is for the clients listening out there in terms of what model they should be evolving to, what you've seen that, hey, look, works the best. Like, because I was looking also the other day, there was a quote that said 80% of companies face collaboration challenges as data science and the engineering teams are in organizational silos. I don't know what you've seen that says, hey, look, these worked really well. And we when we got in there, we were able to make the greatest amount of traction because they were already set up for success. Yeah,
so there's some key things that, foundations that I believe are necessary or needed for success. You touched on collaboration. So it's not just about the data scientists, right? So when you're talking about data, there needs to be collaboration between a data engineer who has access to the data, a data steward who can control the data, create policies and so forth, data scientists to build their models and so forth, right? You also have an application developer who's eventually going to use these models to be able to integrate them into their applications. And also, just as importantly, you have a business user who understands what a business problem is that they're trying to solve. And having this collaboration obviously is key, right? If we look at our data science experience, Watson Studio offering, it's exactly that. There's projects to be able to collaborate all with access control and so forth to be able to share and solve the problem together with all these different assets. The other one is really about open source, right? So there are many, many different open source libraries, machine learning algorithms, and so forth. And one of the values we bring is to make sure that you choose which ones, we'll show you which ones are the best, but at the end of the day, you have full control of what those models look like, which algorithms are being used, and so forth. And you can do that through, either your choice or our recommendation, right? The other one is I talked about being able to operationalize these models, so really true machine learning. And there's actually a concept of machine learning engineers, or I've heard of AI operations or DevOps. I mean, there's many terms, but the whole idea is how do we manage these models that we're creating, and then integrate, put them into production, integrate them into our applications, and then also monitor them, make sure they're healthy, and making sure they're giving the right results, right? So all of that is part of the end-to-end ecosystem for me in what is a great example of what's going to bring success.
What do you think? If I'm a client out there listening right now, I know that I want to get on this ladder to AI. I've got a data corpus, as most clients do. I think every client at this point in time should. And I've got unified governance built in. What are my first steps?
So in terms of what tool to use, you mean, or in terms of
just getting started, trying to figure out what tool to use, trying to get on that path to AI. Get machine learning models in place.
Yeah.
How do I get started? I mean, how do I get off the starting block?
Yeah, so for me, I like to use agile methodology. So let me switch into that a little bit. And for me, it's very important to start small with everything that you do. And what I would do is obviously understand what the business problem is, select your data set that you need, and again, don't start with your 30 terabyte database, because that's not going to work, right? Start small, understand how your data is going to solve the problem, how it's going to fit into the business problem that you have, and then create one or two models, integrate those into the application, find the entire end-to-end, and implement that first, and then see how it operates, right? So the cool thing about machine learning is that you can really apply it to anything. As long as you have data, doesn't matter what your use case is, doesn't matter what problem you're trying to solve, it is applicable and it's going to bring value, right? So whether it's churn, whether it's in finance, whether it's in insurance, so forth, all of these apply. But my recommendation to those who are just getting started is start small. Get your small data set, build some models to start with, and then put those into an environment where you can leverage them through the application, and then you have your end-to-end and see what value it brings, and then you expand from there.
So I presume if you're an IBM customer listening out there, we've also got the data science elite team that can come in and help you with that, complement your efforts, and help get you started quickly. But I presume that the tool that you're going to recommend is Watson Studio and or DSX, yes?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously,
that's for everybody listening. That's Steve's tool, but I know you're very proud of it. Why don't you describe it and why you're such an advocate of it?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we embarked on this about a year and a half or so ago, and the whole idea was some of those concepts that we talked about before, right? How do we make data science and machine learning a team sport? So the collaboration between those different personas was a big deal. How do we make sure we start with, we don't create something that's proprietary, and we basically ensure that we're adopting the technologies that are out there, the open source technology, right? So instead of coming up with a new language, for example, leveraging things like Python, R, Scala. These are all languages that are already available out there. Your top universities, people are well trained on these things. Being able to leverage those technologies instead of having to learn something new, that's a big deal as well, right? Then we integrate that with our own research technologies and automating things in such a way where it simplifies the job of the data scientist, right? And then we also added visual modeling on top of that, right? So if you're not a hardcore PhD data scientist and you want to build models visually, right? So we brought in our Canvas visualization through the SPSS product that we have, reinvented that, and we have a drag and drop type of interface where you can basically say you load your data in, you add the super node, and goes and runs a bunch of algorithms and tells you which one the best one is, right? So for somebody like me who's not a hardcore data scientist, I can go and drag and drop and I have myself a model, right? So all that stuff is really cool. And maybe most importantly, I would say the one thing that really resonates well, especially with our enterprise customers, is the ability to operationalize these models and bring them into their business processes, right? That's a big deal. In fact, there's not a lot of companies out there that can do that. We can, and we do it well, right? And the idea is to make sure that you're getting value in real time out of these models. We support things like auto training, automatically retrains the model as the data changes. You can monitor those models, you can set alerts and so forth, and it really makes the job of, whether it's an IT shop or machine learning engineer, makes their job a lot easier. So
I'm trying to turn this into an infomercial, but it's pretty cool stuff that you have it. I mean, is there anybody else? We're just being honest. I mean, anybody else that can compete against this?
There are a lot of differentiators. In fact, I didn't even touch on all of them, right? The other ones I can think of is we have the capability, because we're a true enterprise solution, we have the ability, think of you're an enterprise company, right? And you have data everywhere. You have different groups, different business units and so forth, right? You're on a cloud somewhere. You may be on multiple public clouds somewhere. You have your on-prem solutions and so forth. One of the values that we bring as an enterprise solution is that you can build your model anywhere and you can deploy it anywhere. So think about that for a second, right? You could be on a cloud, it could be an IBM cloud, it could be another cloud. You can be on mainframe, you can be on Power, you can be on Linux, you can be anywhere. And you can build that model where your data is and you can deploy it anywhere else, right? So that is another value that no one else in the industry has. So it's a huge benefit.
So look, Steve doesn't lie, because I was working with him the other day on a mainframe client that is using DSX. Hey, I've got to ask you, DSX Watson Studio, is that a naming issue?
Same product. So as of today, I'll tell you the current point in time is that Watson Studio is our cloud offering and DSX is our on-premise offering. They
cross over, right? Do they not? I mean, you could develop, like you just said, you could be on-premise or in your private cloud and then push it to cloud. No different, right? It's the same product.
Yeah, it's a naming thing. And we started off, everything was DSX initially, and then the name evolved and most likely will evolve again. But that's where we are as of today.
This makes me think of another question that, more high level, stepping back a bit, and I want to get your perspective on this. Where do you think IBM currently fits in the world of AI?
So actually, we're one of the leaders into, IBM is calling it more cognitive, which is also part of AI. And one of the differences that cognitive brings is, so you have, I explained the difference between data science, machine learning, and AI, and cognitive is really the ability for a system to actually understand as a human would. So IBM actually owns that space, and we've been at this for a little while now. But as far as market share, mind share, and so forth, we fully own this, and we're going to continue to do that. We're pushing the limits from all angles, and we're going to be able to drive more into the future. So we've been named number one in different categories around AI and machine learning. We're very proud of that, and we're going to continue to push that.
Well, that's why I have so many different podcasts that either talk about machine learning or AI. But yours is the best, man. Yours is the best.
Oh, of course. I expect nothing less.
So, look, I know you blog a lot, and I think that's good practice, by the way. But there was one blog that I wanted to reference and get your take on, because you distinguish between data science traditionalists and mavericks. And I wanted to get your take on that one-on-one here. Could you talk to that?
Sure. So, I mean, like anything, you always have kind of two buckets, in my view, in whether it's developers, app developers, or whatever. But the same thing applies to data scientists, right? So they're the ones that understand the technology well. They know what to do. They simply execute, right? So I call those the traditional data scientists, right? But as far as the mavericks are concerned, I kind of refer to myself as that a little bit. I always want to try the latest stuff, the hottest technology. I know it's not going to work 100%, but I'm willing to put up with the pain to get some of the innovation going, to kind of push the limits and see where it's going to take me.
I want to pivot to some other things, but one last question before I do, and that is, what can the team expect of you in terms of, things coming up in the future with data science, ML, AI, whatever?
We've been named number one in multiple categories. We're going to continue to push the limits. We're going to continue to concentrate more on auto ML, be able to, and what I mean by that is really, think of for non-data, the whole idea is to commoditize machine learning and data science as much as possible. So if I think about somebody who is not a hardcore data scientist and wants to come in and just use the platform, I could envision somebody just opening up a data set. All of a sudden, I can automatically visualize the data. It will give me recommendations. It will try out all the different algorithms that make sense based on that data set. So really, truly understand that data set. Provide a model as an outcome without having to do anything. So to me, that's a really cool feature. So we've been working on that. Also, being able to understand the models, right? So model explainability. If for enterprise customers, being able to understand why a decision was taken by a model, what steps were taken, what decisions were made, and so forth, so that if you ever get audited in an enterprise or corporate audit, you can explain why if you're looking at accepting or rejecting a client or a claim or whatever, you can explain that why that was done, right? So those are some of the things that we're working on. There are other things that I will not share.
Well, there's surprises coming, are there?
But so we're going to continue to push the limits.
All right, good. So I lied to you. I want one more question. What is the most exciting use case that you've worked on that comes to mind? I mean, what's the most exciting maybe model that you've put together for a client?
There's so many. But one that comes to mind for me is I used to play soccer when I was a kid. My kids were in soccer, and we've been working with this company that is basically taking real video of real games, soccer games, translate those into data sets in real time, use those data sets to have a model that allows players to be positioned on the field. Hey, what's my optimal decision? Where should I go next? Based on historical data, what is the highest chance of success? Do I pass right? Do I pass backward? Do I pass left? Do I shoot and try to score? And then tie this to an iPhone or a mobile phone with virtual reality and be able to move around as if you were in the field. That all came together. To me, it was very impressive.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting in the future. I mean, kids may actually get off the remote control and be able to at least stand up and play like they're virtually playing for the day. And then they may even get back to going outside. You never know.
Yes, that's right. You never know what's possible.
One of the coolest models, or I was talking with a guy at an exec conference the other day, and they do trading, and they develop models essentially every day and implement in the next trading day, and then buy equities in quantity. But they got these models set up so you may make like a penny for each one, but you trade so many of them that you actually can can make a decent amount of margin. It's pretty interesting what folks are doing with these models these days. I'm going to pivot here. So I think we've conquered the data science piece. I know there's always more we could say, but how's the Z business doing? Going well?
It's going awesome. So I don't know if I'm sure you know, but last year we launched our latest mainframe as IBM, and it was a huge success. It continues to be a huge success, and we're also doing machine learning on the mainframe. In fact, when I think about mainframe driving really today's economy, the way I see this is 50 years later, still the most secure, reliable performance system in the world. And that's where most of the critical data is. So we brought machine learning to the mainframe, and we were obviously first. We're the only ones, and we ported a bunch of open source technology onto the mainframe to be able to provide this offering, and obviously it's doing really well. There's a huge need for this, and we're very happy about that.
So I know you've got essentially open source machine learning all ported on Z.
Yep.
I think, I threw you up a softball there because I know that the mainframe is doing great.
Yep.
Clients continue to invest in it, but what would you say is the most significant advancement in that business? Is it the machine learning capabilities you put onto it, or?
I think it's there's a lot of aspects to it. Security continues to be a number one concern for enterprise, especially. But yeah, we're putting machine learning on the mainframe. We just announced what we call Db2 AI, which really brings machine learning into the optimizer. So it really transforms that technology and brings it closer to a system that truly learns based on the workflows that are running on that, and allows you to provide up to a 30% performance improvement. And for if you're a mainframe customer, that translates into a lot of dollars in terms of savings. So very excited. Customers are really loving that and resonating really well.
Pivot one more time that you are leading the development lab in Canada, which is a huge development lab that does multiple IBM products.
Yep.
I wanted to talk about, I know you're transforming that lab, and there's a lot of listeners out there that I'm sure run their own labs accordingly. And I'd like to hear about some of the transformations, what you're doing with the development lab. What do you think the keys to success as to being an exec leader for a lab are?
Yeah, so, we talk a lot about engagement. From my perspective, it's really about ensuring that people feel rewarded for what they do. They have a great place to come into work every day, collaborate and innovate, right? So if I look at what I've been bringing to the table, there's three areas that I've been focusing on. One is innovation. So we have a lot of smart people in our lab, and we want to make sure that we're empowering them, that we're encouraging the innovation and so forth. And it's part of our job as executives and leaders to enable that and help drive that, right? So that's really number one. The other one is encourage and allow, again, our employees to collaborate with customers and in both directions, right? So play a bigger role in the field, play a bigger role with customers, meetups and so forth. So have a social presence. Also, we're working on that thread of both innovation and social. We're working with a lot of startups where there's a lot of incubators, especially here in Canada, that we're working directly with. And the idea is to bring our expertise there. We're doing mentorship programs and being able to share our knowledge, share our expertise. But not only that, it's also the other way around. We want to understand the trends on where the latest technology is. So we're driving a lot of research. We're always kind of ahead, as we talked about. But it's also very important for us to understand what others are thinking about and where they're going and how we can help them and how we can learn from them as well.
But you've specifically established your own incubator in the lab itself to help drive innovation, yes?
Yeah, so that is something else. And the concept there is really to create a mini startup within IBM, right? So so 100% you're correct. And we just kicked that off, and we got our first project going on right now. I mean, there's a lot of these activities going on within the company already, but this one here is specifically to bring in all the talent of the different labs together and collaborate and drive innovation through that. So very excited about that. We'll see what these teams can cook up.
Now, Steve, I thought I had the first project. Did I get bumped?
Your project can start in January.
All right. So I get to look forward to January then.
All right.
All right, fantastic. Hey, I've got a couple personal questions I always end with, but before I go there, anything that you want the listeners to take away that you want to restate, or things that you suggest they start learning or doing as it relates to either data science, Z, or even serving as a director for a lab? Anything you want to end with?
I think about, maybe I'll say two things. On the technology itself, we talked about AI, we talked about ML and data science and so forth. What I would say is, if you haven't gotten on board, you need to. I think if you want to stay competitive and you want to stay ahead, you really need to get engaged there and drive value for your company and your organization. I can't think of another way or a better way to do that in today's environment. So that would be number one. As far as the lab director role, what I would say is it's not about us, it's about the people. Our job is to make sure, like I said, we empower them and we help them contribute, and we help them innovate, and we create an environment for them where they feel that they can do that easily and get recognized for it. So those are two things I would say.
Nice. Thank you very much. So look, now it goes into Steve, this is your life. And we get to dive in.
I think I hear static.
No, you don't. It's a clear, I can hear you perfectly. Stay with me. Number one, here's my first question for you. What are you most proud of?
Most proud of? I mean, my family. I got three great kids and beautiful wife, and I would say that's the number one thing for me.
You think she'll listen to this?
I hope so.
My wife, I got to drag her to listen to this, but good for you. Your number one role model?
I would have to say Al Martin.
All right. All jokes aside.
Role models, look, I obviously, as far as what shaped me into to be who I am, that's probably my father. He's helped me quite a bit in terms of teaching me how to do the right things in life and how to get ahead and how to, help others and so forth. So I would say that's, as far as mentor, that's probably him.
So is he a pain in the rear end like you are?
Probably would.
All right. Great. What's your grand ambition for the future?
And look, from my perspective, it's continue to drive innovation. I love doing that. I like getting people to be able to do that and push the limits from all angles. So from my perspective, is continue to do what I'm doing, and I think I'm enjoying it. And I want to make sure that our people feel good about what they do. And like I said, we empower them and we help them achieve what the art of the possible is. So that's really what I look forward to.
What do you do for fun?
I work, man. What do you mean?
Yeah. We need to get you some help then.
I like to spend time with family. Like I said, that's number one for me. And I like to travel with family. That's a big deal as well.
Where do you travel? Where's the best place to travel?
Where's your
first recommendation?
I love going to the beach, man. We go to Miami a lot. Love to do that, and that's where I like to just relax and tune everything out.
That's because you're in Toronto. You got to get that warm weather every so often.
Yeah, we do live in Toronto. It's cold already.
Any place you go to learn? I mean, no, forget the travel. I'm on to like just any books you're reading or anything.
So I do a lot of hands-on learning, actually. So I prefer playing with technology. I prefer learning new tools as a way to educate myself. So in fact, I was a programmer when I first graduated. I did programming for several years, and I hadn't done that for a while. And about a few years ago, I was like, it's time to try again. And I went and developed an app for the iPhone, right? So that's kind of, for me, the best way to understand where the technology is. When I look at our Watson Studio DSX solution, I write Python code in there and make sure that, one, it's the expectations that I like, and two, it keeps me fresh on the technologies. I read about business, obviously, and social media and stuff like that. But, that's what keeps me busy.
So you did Angry Birds, huh?
I did not do Angry Birds. But I did
very similar.
I did a copy of Floppy Bird. I don't know if you remember that game. guy that made millions of dollars off something he built in a weekend.
Well, I'll say last question. Why is Canada so consumed with hockey when there's American football out there? That's what I want to know.
Because it's cold here, man, and we have ice, so we have to do something. Otherwise, we're just going to watch TV.
Hey, thank you for being here. All joking aside, you're a good man, and I appreciate it. Our collaboration is great, and I truly I'm thankful for it. So thanks again for coming.
Hey, same here. Yeah, I appreciate it, and it was great being on here.
All right. Hey, I do have one more question. Where do you is for the listeners out there? Where's the best place to reach you? Is it on LinkedIn or?
Yep, LinkedIn, Twitter, both of those. It's easy to get me.
All right, so you're active on both. We'll put that in the show notes. Steve Astorino, my good friend, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Al. See you.
Talk to you next time, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcasts to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time, over and out.